What's up? What's up? Hello. This is almost too happy. Wait a second. No, that's also too happy. Damn it. I don't have any sad, spooky music for for Age of Umbra. Well, damn. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome. This is Analyzing Umbra. I am giving this sort of thing mostly for the VOD, because I know I'm a little bit early, but I was ready a little bit early, and I got impatient. If I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. But I figured that's not too bad. That's not too bad. I can say hello. I can say hi to anyone who is possibly new. I did want to sort of lay out who I am, what I do here on the channel, in case, maybe you're interested in Age of Umbra, but you aren't so sure about me. Hello, I'm Mega. Megaphone Man, or Jack, if you prefer. I am a very experienced DM, and I do a series where I analyze Critical Role I used to say from the perspective of an outsider. I don't know if I can say that now that, where's the stats? I don't know if I can say that now that I have like nearly 800 hours spent talking about Critical Role. But I am at least a person who has never seen any Critical Role property, period, except for what I have watched on stream. So everything that you see on stream, that is it. That is all I've watched. And I'm really excited to watch something live, something current. Because I have only been able to see, I have only watched Campaign 1. We're on episode 83 of Campaign 1. So this was a big jump forward. I'll say that first and foremost. It's not even really it's not even really part of the, not review, I don't know what you would call it. Not really part of the episode discussion. But it is a wild jump forward to me personally. Going from Campaign 1, even later Campaign 1, they're still with Geek and Sundry. They don't look that much younger, but they look just enough younger that it like throws me off a little bit. But yeah, so that is sort of a little bit about me. I debated if I was going to do this or not, and I'm still not entirely sure. Actually, let me maybe look it up, because I know that one of the other things that I would say I am not necessarily known for, because I don't know that I'm really known for anything, but one of the things that I really like doing, and one of my, I think, unique things about the way that I look at Critical Role, is I am very into the maps, and analyzing the maps, and talking about how the maps serve the plot, and the story, and the encounter. And I was very interested in that Age of Umbra map that we saw. I'm assuming it's in the actual core rulebook, but I have not bought mine yet because I'm debating between physical and digital, and I don't want to buy it twice. Shoot. I just realized that this is still unlisted. Oh no, I made a huge error. I have made a huge mistake. Everyone that's here is like from the announcement or from the Discord. Shit. I didn't even let the algorithm pick it up. Fuck. Well, what are you gonna do? I also just dropped a bunch of fucks in the first 10 minutes. So hopefully that's not an issue. Let's see, Age of Umbra map. But, it is. It's available. Okay, it is now public. So that's rough, but is what it is, I suppose. Yeah, thank you for mentioning that, Mike 30, because I may not have known otherwise, so I appreciate it. Let's see. Oh yeah, there's the Critical Role wiki. The Critical Role wiki has the map. All right, perfect. There we go. But it was interesting. It was very, very, very interesting. I mean, I'll say this right at the top. I've got a little bit of an agenda. I've got a little bit of like things I want to talk about. But I'm probably not going to focus too much on it as like a general session 0. Like, if you want to know about session 0s in general, broadly, for either TTRPGs in general or for Daggerheart specifically, I think this one was pretty standard. Like, I didn't see a lot of things that I was like, whoa, so surprising for a session 0. The main things that I want to talk about in terms of it are what it sort of shows in terms of what the designers or people very intimately involved in the design process, how they view Daggerheart, the things that they view as important to talk about and to look at during a session 0. Because there were some things that most of it was very standard, but there was a couple of things here and there that were kind of little diversions that I don't think were like good or bad in general, but I do think were very interesting in terms of what it feels like it says about Daggerheart and like the things that they want Daggerheart to be. So yeah, I'm very, very excited. Imagine if you had jumped ahead and like Travis had a 3-foot tall mohawk. Let's be honest, if it was going to be anyone with a 3-foot tall mohawk, it's Taliesin. Let's see. There is a map in the core rulebook. I'm not 1,000% sure it's the same one, but probably is. I think, yeah. I mean, I've got one pulled up here. Let me see. Dooba-dooba-doo. Let me pull that onto there. Boop. All right. I chose Travis because it would be surprising. That's fair. That's fair enough. All right. Okay. What's up, Teprock? Love to see you covering new stuff. Hopefully people find you this way. I agree. Thank you. All right. Has the amber reached in the central part? It's the same map. Yeah. I think we're correct on this. Yeah. Is Critical Eyes over? No. It is. So for anyone who isn't in the Discord, didn't see like the announcement or didn't see the community posts or didn't tune into last Critical Eyes, but I'll announce it here as well. Critical Eyes is getting a schedule change, but it is not going anywhere. We are now, instead of doing Wednesday and Sunday, we'll be doing Fridays and Mondays. So Critical Eyes is not going anywhere. And if you like this, you might like that. So check it out. I don't know if we'll be doing it this Friday because, honestly, I'm not feeling the best physically. I don't know if you can tell. I have a little bit of a lisp because I got Invisalign. And my body in general has been feeling terrible. But I'm excited to be here and talking about it. I just don't know if I can strap in for a 6 to 8 hour stream with Critical Eyes on Friday. And there are work people coming over. So we'll see. May or may not do Critical Eyes on Friday, but it's around for the long-term still. All good. 8 hour stream. No, not this one. I don't know that, I mean, I'm very interested to talk about their session 0, but not a lot actually, not a lot of plot happened, which is actually, it is one of the interesting things about this. So one of the very first things I wanted to talk about. Well, firstly, I'll go through a summary, sort of a recap, sort of situation. So if you didn't see the episode, what they did was they went through media touchstones, which I love as the start of any good session 0. Give your players a vibe, give them a feel for what's going on. And then a setting lore overview, which I have a little bit of a comment about this later. Classes, ancestries, communities, starting settlement, which this were the most interesting parts to me. So starting settlement, relationship building questions, and then each player made a unique location. And so, speaking of the things that are interesting about this to me and how they ran this session 0 and what I think it says about Daggerheart, is I have run a few sessions of Daggerheart, not that many, but there's a big focus in the book and in the provided modules and supplements of kind of this very collaborative world building. This very collaborative world building, not even just outside of the session, but like mid-session. It's like, hey, your cart is going through the forest. The trees have something unique about them, and you ask a player what's unique about the trees. It's like in the moment world building as well. And something that I am, and they worked that into the session 0. They had the players like build the starting settlement and like determine a lot of things about it. And then towards the end, they had each player separately make a location within the world and within the setting, which is super cool. And honestly, it will, I think it would make like immediate, easy sense to me in a campaign. And I'm not saying it doesn't make sense here. I'm saying I'm very interested to see how that sort of player customization works into the plot of a miniseries. Because a campaign, you can kind of find the plot as you go. You know what I'm saying? A campaign, you can start kind of slow. You can test the waters. You can look around a little bit. It's not as necessary that there is like a tight plot that like has an arc at the start of a campaign as it is at the start of a miniseries. And I have some theories about how they're going to kind of play this off, but I that was one of the very first things that it was like, oh, that is something very unique that seems very like tied into the core of Daggerheart. That's not something you're going to see at a typical D&D session 0. You could. I don't think there's anything, there's nothing wrong with it. But it's definitely not, I think, the typical thing you're going to see. But I need to, this will be interesting. It's just like, me just presenting points and then reading chat. I'm more used to the more natural flow of it. But you can't talk about Omar for 8 hours? Surprisingly not. Yeah. You hosting any games with the community? Because if there's a legit campaign with you DMing, I'd want to join that shit. I likely will never say never. I don't have any plans about DMing on actually on stream. But no, none planned. I have some ideas about, maybe hosting some games or organizing some games with the community, but I wouldn't hold out any sort of immediate hope. Let's see. Each player making a location is a suggestion in the book, and we did it, and I loved it. Interesting. And again, it makes a lot of, like I said, immediate sense to me for a campaign. And I'm trying to think if I should jump into it now. I'm gonna keep reading chat for a second, and then I'll jump into what I kind of think is going on with it. Yeah. They've said it's modeled after how they did it in their campaigns, i.e. Tau creating Whitestone in C1. Honestly, each player making a unique location, that makes a decent amount of sense to me. And even every player being involved in the creation of the starting settlement also makes sense to me. The thing that actually, weirdly, the thing that blew me away, that I was like, whoa, that is bold for a miniseries, is letting them put the starting settlement anywhere they wanted, Because so I guess part of my theory on how this is kind of gonna work is, and I kind of set it up here. Let's see. Where did I say it? So I took a lot of notes. Yeah, here it is. Players are deciding settlement name and location. And I think there's kind of 3 ways to make that work. It either means that Matt's story is incredibly flexible in terms of its location. The options are very close together. Like, the map looks relatively big, but maybe traveling across it isn't quite as difficult as it first appears. Or there is no real story yet. Maybe they did this session 0 well before any sort of session 1. I think the thing that is probably the most likely is that the story is just really flexible in terms of its location. I think there's probably like broad beats. Matt, my guess would be that Matt did what I sometimes talk about building like 80% of something and leaving that 20% unbuilt that actually meshes it into a location and a region and all that. Sometimes it's a harder way to build content because a lot of times location and like surrounding atmosphere and locations and characters and objects, a lot of times that can give you guidance on making the plot or making characters or making certain beats. So I think that making it totally like location agnostic is more difficult, but it would really work here. So I think there's a decent chance that it's something like that. Let's see. Even if locations they create don't come up, it makes players more invested in the world. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and that's why, again, I'm saying, all of it, like I said, instantly makes sense for me in a campaign. The limited time frame is the thing that is interesting to me on how to balance, because campaigns are so freeform, they're so loose. But a miniseries, you kind of got to get to the point relatively quickly. And so I'm interested to see how all of this works with that, Because you're right, even especially with the extra locations that they made, even if you never actually go to it, Matt can put in a reference, like an NPC references the, I think Talison's location that he made was like a haunted forest. You can insert a rumor or someone talking about the haunted forest, and that makes him feel cool. And it, again, like you said, it kind of drives that investment. So yeah, I'll be looking out for signs of flexibility, and I'll be wanting to see the thing that I'm the most curious about, and the thing that I am the most, how do I say it, hesitant about with the collaborative world building aspect is plots feeling genericized. Like plots, like me being able to see the flexibility. I'll be really interested to see if what the plot ends up being, like the bad guy, the obstacle, the environmental hazard, whatever the kind of crux, whatever the inciting incident and the conflict driver of Age of Umbra, whatever that is, I'm interested to see how generic it feels. Because my main hesitancy with this like extreme collaboration when it comes to world building is that it will make stories and like plots either much, much harder to create, or it will make them feel generic. It'll make it clear that they were built with flexibility in mind to account for anything that the players might do. So that is, and I don't know how it's going to come off. That's going to be one of like the big things that I will be looking at as we actually go through Age of Umbra, is like, does this feel like a fully constructed plot, you know, on the level of the Briarwoods or on the level of the Chroma Conclave, where it's to a pretty decent degree, I think it feels really built into the fabric of the world. I'm interested to see how that goes. Are Laura and Liam not in it? They are not. Was it the starting settlement? I thought it was hometown. They also developed all of their old hometowns, but they also, Desperlock is their home settlement. It is where they are essentially starting. I believe Keyleth's character, oh my gosh, that's going to be an adjustment. Marisha's character and Sam's character are both from Desperlock. Everyone else is from somewhere different. I believe Taliesin and Ashley, their characters are from the same starting settlement. But yeah. I don't recall them explicitly saying that Laura and Liam aren't in it. They weren't in session 0, but at least as far as the Critical Role wiki is concerned, they're still counting Liam and Laura on the cast list. So my assumption is that they are going to be in the series. They just weren't in the session 0. Surprised the players were revealed to us. Yeah. I think at one point in session 0, Matt said he wasn't going to showcase all the stuff for the game guides because he wants players and GMs to discover and run that content on their own. So maybe he isn't showing a lot of the world by intention. Very possible. Very, 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 very possible. Yeah. Q. Oh wait. Well, and I also think like that's what I'm. This map does not have a scale, right? And you know, we can see buildings and like bridges here. And so there's a certain amount of assumption that we can make about the scale of this map. But at the same time, we know that the pre-civilization, I think it was called the Halcyon Empire, something to that effect. The pre-Umbra cataclysm. Centuries passed since the God King Uthadius. Halcyon Domain. You know, the Halcyon Domain sounds like this very big, grand government faction. So it's unclear if these are buildings on the level of like, if that's like on the level of Oxford University, or if that's, you know, a mega structure. I'm not entirely, you know, kind of certain about that. So it's hard to get an exact sense of scale for what's kind of going on here. I think Desperlock is somewhere down there, if I remember correctly. But yeah. You have not seen anything GM'd by Matt except for part of C1. Correct. Yep, correct. So your only experience with Matt's GM style is a very long campaign. It is. And that's the really big, one of the really big interest points to me in terms of learning, especially because I'm I think I'm pretty decent, I would hope, at long form campaigns, and I'm okay at limited series, but not so great at one shots. And so it's like one shots and limited series, I know that they've done quite a bit of and produced miniseries that people really, really love. Obviously, I know that Brennan DMs Exu Calamity, but still, Critical Role is producing that. And I know Exu is pretty well regarded as far as I'm aware. So they clearly have a lot of experience with setting up miniseries. And so I'm very, I don't know, especially with all of the lore involved in this. It's very interesting to me because a lot of what I saw in terms of the lore that was introduced, in terms of like the players playing such an active role in creating a lot of the settings, all of that just screams campaign to me. It screams campaign length. And even like what the players were into, right? I put at the beginning, where was it? No. I don't know. I don't know exactly where I have it. But I don't know where I put it. It was, I basically was, I should have organized these a little bit better into the quotes. Oh yeah, right here. Seems to me like several different possible party purpose directions, which I'm into, especially in session 0. Like we talked about, they talked about maintaining the fires, like needing kindling, especially with Marisha's. Marisha's. I got confused. I thought I said Keyleth. With Marisha's character being a former pyre keeper, the dungeon delving for artifacts like sacred branches, uncovering lore and history, discovering and mapping pyres to make travel easier, especially with Sam's character. I saw a lot of different possibility. Like everything was like flexibility, player investment, like let's take our time and see where this campaign goes. Let's follow our interest as players, Everything seems really kind of built around that. And especially with what they chose for Desperlock, of like Desperlock being a recently sort of uncovered library. Uncovering lore and history definitely seems to be possibly part of something. But it's interesting. I think if I had to like take a guess, I think that the plot will actually be probably lower, like lower key than I'm currently kind of assuming it to be. Or than it gave the impression, because I think a lot of it is them wanting to kind of show off Age of Umbra as a campaign frame. So they want to show the depth that this campaign frame has when you yourself go to play it. But Age of Umbra itself probably isn't going to take on the same like epic tone. It'll probably have a more focused thing. And I will say, if it is just uncovering lore, dungeon delving for branches, discovering and mapping the pyres, those could kind of take place anywhere. So I do think like there is a version of this that I really understand, especially with the campaign-specific mechanics that he introduced later. Specifically, where is it? There were 2 campaign frame or setting specific mechanics that he introduced. There we go. Right here. Which I wasn't super, I would say thrilled about, but the lurking darkness rule. that says to me the lurking darkness rule for if you don't exactly remember, whenever a party finishes a short or long rest while not in the vicinity of a sacred pyre, he's rolling a d12 on the lurking darkness table, and mostly bad things happen. And that to me is like, hey, don't stay out in the wilderness, right? And so I can see a very like kind of looping nature to whatever they do, maybe a dungeon dive sort of thing. And if you have a dungeon, maybe even like a mega dungeon that Matt could have created ahead of time, Matt could pop that in anywhere in the world. So wherever they put their settlement, he can pop in the dungeon pretty close to it. And then you build this kind of mega dungeon sort of situation. And then they can't stay in there for more than 1 or 2 days because of the lurking darkness. Gives you a lot of excuses to introduce new obstacles on the way. It gives Matt a really good control of the pacing if they are constantly like looping back and forth between this dungeon and a sacred pyre. Suddenly, as Matt trying to either stretch or contract this into an 8-episode run, you can introduce or retract planned hazards on the road in order to, again, kind of control that pace. If they are making progress too quickly, you can throw a obstacle or a complication onto the path. If they are going too slowly, you don't introduce anything on the path. You kind of just teleport them back and forth between the pyre and the dungeon. So lots. I can see a version of this, and then the dungeon itself could have lore. It could have a sacred branch. It could have all sorts of shit. Yeah. So I don't know. There's definitely like I can see maybe a direction for the plot. But I am so not confident on it that I am very excited to see what Matt actually does do with it, you know? RE Old World Halcyon. I don't know if it was one empire or just the area where the players are. Yeah, that's also true. I'm not sure either. Yeah. I thought the map was supposed to be the capital city, kind of like Anorlondo in Dark Souls. Maybe. That's kind of my thing about the map is I can't quite pick up a vibe for how big this is. Like, is that bridge like the Golden Gate Bridge? Or is it like the bridge from Shadow of the Colossus? You know what I'm saying? Like, that could be kind of either one. And those are very different scales of size, you know? I don't know. Are you going to watch the episodes live on Thursday or immediately on Monday? Live on Thursday and probably again on Monday. But both, yeah. Done at least 6 if we include Candela Obscura. Fair enough. I think they did the collaborative world building mostly to showcase it as a recommended way to do things. But, well, and you know what? I would have thought almost identical to you. I would have had an almost identical thought if they had not been able to place the settlement. Which just tells me that, like, whatever the plot is, most likely, it can be anywhere. Whatever plot Matt has planned, it could go anywhere on this map. But again, that's one of the things that I'm kind of going to be watching out for is, like, does it feel just plopped in? You know, because one of the cool things about having a frame like this and having, like, a cool map and setting lore is, like, one of the cool parts about using a setting is that everything does feel worked in. Everything feels like it's kind of all supposed to be there and it's all interconnected. And I do have a slight worry about a plot like that possibly feeling a little disconnected. But we'll see. I'm very interested. Finding a new sacred branch seems like it would be a natural hook. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Lubuffin has a theory that they are doing. I hope I'm saying it right. Lubuffin? I don't know. That they are doing a 2-month miniseries in each of the 6 campaign frames to make a year of Daggerheart. Oh, that could be cool. I could be into that. Yeah. Desperlock is such a cool name. It is. Desperlock's really good. Those can kind of take place anywhere. I don't know if that's praise or criticism, but I feel like that's the goal for fantasy TTRPGs, right? Be flexible, but also familiar, showcase the rich flavor. It is both praise and critique. I think you want, especially like when you're prepping for something to be flexible, you want it to be able to take place anywhere as the DM, but from the player perspective, you want to feel like it couldn't have taken place anywhere else. And that's a tall order. That's not like snap your fingers easy. And we will see if they can pull it off. Cause yeah, for the best part, or not the best part, it is easiest for the DM if, like, mechanically and everything, it can take place anywhere, but then they have to do the work to make it feel like it could have only been here, because that, I think, drives a lot more investment within the world. It's all giving me a lot of BG3 Act 2 vibes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Or are you saying like those can kind of take place anywhere in terms of the entire frame, like the map and the setting? Because I do think that this whole thing is meant to be slotted in wherever you want it. Yeah. The way I read Lurking Darkness is there's no reason to introduce/stress that rule unless you're going to give them a strong reason to go outside the radius. We don't know what the reason is, but there's like a 0% chance they just get to chill in town with that rule in place. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree. I think I'm not super, or how do I say it? If there was going to be an environmental effect that damaged them, or, like messed with them the longer they stayed outside of a sacred pyre, I think it could have been done, I don't even want to say more simply, but like, I don't know. They love their roll tables, man. Like, the randomness is fine. And I think the randomness of Lurking Darkness is kind of one of these other things that makes the world not feel too strongly like integrated or together for my taste. Like, I could really see something along the lines of like the further away you get from a sacred pyre, like you just take like the GM gains a fear every like, so far you get away from it, or just the consecutive times you spend away from a sacred pyre. So like first long rest, it's like 1 fear. Two long rests, it's 2 fear. 3 long rests, it's 3 fear. And that resets when you go back to a sacred pyre. The roll table, I don't know. I don't even want to critique it too harshly because I feel like it is probably a difference in the things that they like. But that increased randomness makes it harder for me to really feel the environment. Like, I don't feel like I feel the sense of Lurking Darkness when I have the random chance to gain a hope, So I don't know. The Lurking Darkness is not for me, but I understand that they have a much higher view of that sort of mechanic. A frame and a setting sound the same to me. I think a frame is a subset of a setting, to my understanding. excuse me, is a subset of a setting. I'm not entirely sure, but not confident in a theory. No. Neither of those bridges in the picture look like the Golden Gate Bridge. No, I'm talking about like the scale. The scale. Like, is this the length of the Golden Gate Bridge? Or is this the length of the Shadows of Colossus Bridge, which is much, much longer? That sort of thing. I wonder if they will stay level 1 for all 8 episodes, and if they don't, how many levels they go up over the short period of 8 episodes. Man, that is a question. If I had to make a totally random, uneducated guess, totally random, my guess would be a level every 2 episodes. I don't know. Because I believe that Daggerheart has, 10 levels? 8 levels? Either 8 or 10. I believe 10. So I don't think they're going to go like 0 to 10 over 8 episodes. That would be crazy. And even a level per episode seems really fast to me. So I feel like a level every 2 makes a lot of sense. And I can't see them just staying at level 1. That also seems a little bit strange to me. I heard that level ups are slower in Daggerheart. I mean, there are certainly less of them. There's less of them overall, but I don't know. Do you think it would be better to not watch it on Thursday so people can give spoiler warnings? No. Well, I mean, I'm deprioritizing spoiler warnings, essentially. No, because I need, just in terms of me making sure that I have the time to watch it and intake everything and think about it and prep for Wednesdays. I can't lean on having enough time between Monday and Wednesday. I can't like bank on that because we have Critical Role on Mondays. I want to put out the takeaways on Tuesdays. So it's just like, it's an amount of time thing. I wouldn't have enough time to guaranteed be ready for this. If I only did it on Mondays. Yeah. 10 levels. 10 levels. There we go. As for Lurking Darkness, I think that just means it's a tool you want to deploy. It's a tool if you want to deploy it to the players, and if you don't, guess what? The darkness hasn't come around yet. Like, bandits only raid at night when the GM feels like it. Yeah, which is, like... I think the reason that I focus on it in my head is because I really like the idea of setting specific mechanics. And I will also say, I found it interesting that in this miniseries that is sort of the... That is sort of the, not deployment, but is like the first look at Daggerheart. I found it very interesting that they would employ so many setting-specific mechanics. Because if I'm imagining myself trying to like pitch a new kind of show, right? If I imagine myself trying to do that, I want to show the system, or if I'm trying to pitch a new system and I'm trying to show everyone how cool it is, I want to show the system in its like, not necessarily typical state, but it's like, I want to show off the things that are really strong about it. And so introducing setting specific mechanics or frame specific mechanics, whatever, would seem at first blush possibly like a mistake to me because it would distract from the more core stuff unless part of the point is how easy it is to slot shit in, how easy it is to pop in and out these like broad mechanics. You know, look at how sort of accessible our system is. You can build an easy mechanic that interacts with like the core systems really simply. And like, cause like the ones that they introduced are, where was it? It was the Lurking Darkness, which interacts with their long rest, and it interacts with their long rest in my opinion, kind of really specific way of you can mitigate it by using a long rest action, a different long rest action than the normal selection that you might have. That's something very different from D&D. You could not implement a mechanic like this in D&D in the way that this is being implemented. Keeping watch or something like that in D&D is basically free. So it was there's no like resource that you use during a D&D long rest. So introducing a mechanic that highlights that like limited number of things you can do during a long rest, I thought very smart. And then the second thing with the I think it's Strength of Hate. Yeah, Strength of Hate. Showing off scars, showing off the death mechanics, showing off, I believe it was proficiency, because limitations on the number of hope, like players having varying amounts of hope, and especially with hope, this is not the same. Permanently marking off a hope is not the same as like limiting a spell slot, right? Because marking off a hope doesn't actually limit the amount of resources you are capable of gaining or wielding during a session. It purely limits how much of that resource you can store. And so again, introducing a custom mechanic to drive attention at what I think is one of the unique differentiators of Daggerheart, this sort of refilling resource bar that D&D has basically no equivalent to, also very smart, if you ask me. So I thought all of that was incredibly interesting, even if I'm not the biggest fan of, a roll table. That's pretty whatever to me. But I did think it was, I thought the introduction of the mechanics themselves was very interesting. Yeah. I'm not a fan of the specifics of the table. It's just kind of boring. I also agree. It's like a like random encounter, fear, hope. It's kind of like, whatever, man. It's like, do we need a table to do this? Probably not. But I get it. I'm not as opposed to random tables as you seem to be, but this particular one is kind of bland. I think that random tables, how do I say it? I think they inherently make events less specific, and specificity in like the things that happen at, in any given session is one of the ways that you make things feel crafted, right? You make you maintain the illusion. I talk about the magic trick of D&D, but TTRPGs in general. Part of the magic trick is making it feel like you had more than the players ever found. And I think that tables, unless the table is really finely crafted, and I said that right here, random encounter tables are pretty mad to me unless they're very finely crafted. Unless the table is very finely crafted, I find that they enhance they kind of pull back the curtain. They kind of pull back the curtain on the lack of specificity and the lack of crafting. And I don't think that's like a good thing. That's not like a good like feel for the table. But I feel like, on a scale of like a -10, I hate it, to +10, I love it, I'm like a -1 on it. I don't care that much about it. It's pretty whatever to me. I don't like it, but almost, I almost don't even feel strongly enough to mention if I wasn't going to talk about how I thought that the frame mechanics were like interesting that they exist. If I hadn't been wanting to talk about that, I probably just wouldn't have even mentioned it because I just don't feel that strongly about it. Yeah. Waiting for spoiler warnings. Also put someone else in the critical path for Mega, and that's a nightmare. Yeah. There's a bottleneck there. If like one of the reasons that it works on critical eyes is because John is so far ahead on them that it's never a question of like, is John going to have them ready this week? I think John has up into like the hundreds at this point. It's like 20 or 30 ahead of me. So, and John is not limited by a release schedule in order to make the time codes. Like all of the episodes already exist. So someone making time codes for this would have to like, you're about 50 ahead. Oh my God, that's crazy. That's crazy cool. But yeah, it's a really good example of like, John can get so far ahead that if John can't do time codes for a week, if John can't do at this point, 50 ahead, John could stop doing time codes for like 5 months and we would be fine. So, that's one of the reasons that it can work is because he can get so far ahead and, there's very little like bottlenecking there. As opposed to with this, it would be like 1 year. Yeah, exactly. Whereas with this, it would be like, gotta have time within this time frame. I have to have time. Like, it's too risky from a production standpoint, unfortunately. Did you get a Beacon membership, or will you just be watching via YouTube or Twitch? YouTube. I did not get a Beacon membership. Unfortunately, how do I say it? If I made more money, I would get a Beacon membership because that would make it easier, but I cannot currently afford to that sort of expenditure when it's unnecessary. Even if it would help. Every campaign frame has setting specific mechanics. That's wild. It's wild, but it also and again, one of the reasons that I think they would obviously include it in this sort of thing is if they want to highlight that part. Yeah. They have a few specials showing the typical system. Yeah, that's also true. While the previous ones were using the beta, I think they were also trying to show the different tones. Yeah. I think the flow or order of session 0 things was odd in one area. Putting weapons and armor gathering before looking at the sections that came right after, I'd put the weapons at the end. That's fair. I think one of the things that was the most interesting to me, especially in terms of the ordering, because I think that's a good point, and something I did want to mention, is when Matt did all of like the setting lore, which was solid, but then we went into the classes, the ancestries, and the communities, and these 3 things had a ton of frame-specific lore, and a lot of things that either hit on stuff we already knew or kind of repeated things we already knew from the setting lore side of things. And so even outside of a what would you say? From outside of just like an organizational perspective, I found it very interesting and like something that I'm going to think about, especially in terms of like the communities and the ancestries and the classes, like putting more of my lore explanation into interesting things about the classes or interesting things about the ancestries or ways that the communities in this setting diverge from the communities in a maybe typical fantasy game. These seemed like they could have, if Matt had wanted to. I don't think he needed to, but if Matt had wanted to, I think these could have been buffed out in terms of lore even more, and you probably could have made this shorter. I think you could have made this a lot shorter, talked about the Umbra probably, and then baked a lot of the like pre-Halcyon, the pre-Cataclysm stuff into classes, ancestries, communities. Because like we have like the ancestries with the clank being this like hollow vessel for a spirit. Like the sentient part of a clank is not related to the body at all. They are disembodied spirits shoved into a body. So they've been re-embodied, I guess. They're re-embodied spirits. Like, that's fascinating. We can talk about the departure of the gods when we talk about that. We can talk about, the pre-cataclysm. Like, there's so many things you can talk about just within that clank definition, or that clank lore. And so I felt a little bit of repetition there. And there's also something to be said for wanting to hit home and maybe repeat some of the more important aspects. But it made me realize that especially with the communities, it really stood out to me on the communities because these were a little distinct from something like a background in D&D in that they are the place you come from, not necessarily the thing that you did before adventuring. You know, it's a bit of a substantial distinction, I think. And especially when we're talking about the places people come from, that just is setting lore. That is setting the communities. And so it really got my gears turning in terms of like me thinking about possibly DMing Daggerheart in the future. That really got my gears turning in terms of like, oh, I could build out these communities. I could build out the lore behind them. And that would not only give my players a broader view of the setting that they're finding themselves in, but it also immediately makes them like participate in the lore. Like the moment you build a community, if the communities all have this really setting specific stuff, you are now engaging with the lore. You're thinking about how that lore affects your character. You know, if I choose the chef background in D&D, well, a chef is sort of a chef is sort of a chef, you know? Like, there's only so many different lore explanations for how you cook food. And that is sort of decoupled broadly from the setting. Obviously, there could be very setting-specific, aspects or modifications to jobs in the same way that there were aspects and modifications to the classes, but not nearly as much as communities. That really got my gears really turning in there about like what I could do, Yeah. For chat, where can you find the Daggerheart rules? Do they have an SRD? I'm actually interested. They released an SRD. There's also Demiplane. I've looked on Demiplane because that's where I was participating in the beta. And Demiplane, I believe now it's kind of locked off. Which do not take this as any amount of complaining. They worked hard on this product. They should get paid for it. So I think if you go to what is Daggerheart game rules, it'll be like buy the game. And I'm really split on whether to buy it digitally or physically. Physically would be more, I think, useful for me personally as a person, but online would be more useful for like displaying it on stream. I'm probably gonna buy it online. I just haven't fully taken the leap yet. But yeah, so that's a quick way. The order suggested by the book: class, heritage, ancestry, community, traits, additional info, equipment, background, experiences, domain cards, connections. Interesting. Oh, the connections. I'm glad that this is part of the actual... I'm so glad this is part of the actual rules. So glad. I loved a lot of the connections. I loved Travis and Talison's connection. I thought that was so much fun and really implied additional actions that they can take during the course of the miniseries. super fun, super cool. And then there was something that Sam said that I thought was so funny. Where is it? Because I made fun of him for it in my notes. I was like, come on, Sam, what are you doing? Since the gods' abandonment, purpose, directions. No, it wasn't this long ago, was it? No, it wasn't this long ago. There's no way. There's no way. Ah, damn it. I also do just like the setting. The setting seems really cool. I'm waiting to fully dive in on liking it or not liking it. I'm waiting to see how it actually plays. Because there's... Oh, is it trying to do ads? Okay, it didn't, which is good. I tried to turn the ads off. I'm waiting to see how it actually goes off before I say that I like the setting too much, because it's easy to talk about a cool setting and it's harder to play in it. It's easier to just talk about the cool things that a setting has and it does. But when it actually comes down to running in it and making, decisions and presenting things that feel setting specific, I think that shit's a lot harder. So I like the idea of Age of Umbra as a frame and as a setting. But we'll see how it actually goes in the actual game. Oh, right here. During the relationship questions around 142.25, Marisha asked Sam, what lie have you told me that I absolutely believe? And Sam is like, what? What do you mean, what lie? I don't even know our relationship yet. I don't know why I would lie to you. Yeah, man. It's you. You got it. You got yes, that is the point. Congratulations. We're getting there. And I'm giving Sam some shit here, but I thought it was such a quick and easy encapsulation of like what the point of the relationship questions is it is to get you thinking about these things. It is to get you to figure out what you would lie about, why you would lie about it. That makes you think deeper, not only about the other person's character, but about your character. So that was funny. I don't want to give Sam too much shit for it. I think he was mostly making a joke and like vamping while he thought. But I thought that was so funny. I thought that was really, really funny to like say out loud, wait, you're making me do the point of the question? What the hell? I thought that was awesome. Non sequitur, I find your stream title amusing since you haven't seen any other session zeros. I can assume. I can take a guess and make a provocative stream title. It's not even that provocative. I can take a stab at it. It might be odd, but once I'm used to a system, I never build a character in the order the book suggests. Yeah, I'm with you there. Or at least, if I do build it in the order it suggests, it's an accident. I once I'm used to it, I just kind of build it the way I'm gonna build it. Like, I build characters in oftentimes very different orders, just depending on the concept, But two of the frames I'm confident will be fun / I will want to run. Like, two of them I want to try and I think would work well, and two I'm sus of. We'll see. Give Sam a break. He's making an amazing TV show. 2 TV shows. Yeah. The relationship questions are also really good at making sure they are two-way. It reveals stuff about both halves at once. I agree. So I was a huge fan of the relationship questions. I think I've done something similar in my own games, like in my own D&D games. But this made me just even more confident that I should work them in explicitly. Like, I should be serious about it. Like, I just should do it, even if it's like a little like weird or, maybe not awkward, but even if people have a reaction like Sam's, I feel like I should do it because it just seemed like nothing but positive. And I was really, really into it. In terms of the actual characters, Taliesin Jaffe, Underborn, Fairy, Wizard. Of course, it seems weird and gross and fucked up. He's like a weird anthropomorphic spider that's eating raw meat all the time. Blech. Ashley Johnson, Highborn Clank, Bard. She's got like weird clockwork innards. Very cool. Marisha Ray, Orderborn Orc Guardian. Super hot, super strong. Also seemingly a little bit haunted. By past decisions, it seems. Sam Riegel, Ridgeborn Fawn, Ranger, big ol' coward, is real skittish, is kind of a little bit, that's the vibe I got. Travis Williams, Slyborn Human, Seraph. Actually, Travis's character is super similar to how I imagined Sam's character when I was making the predictions. And it's like, I was so close. But Travis has like, he's getting these abilities. He kind of hates them, but he's not sure. He's trying to figure them out. So that was very, very cool. I'm excited for tomorrow, man. Like, the session 0 was interesting. Don't get me wrong. But I am much more interested in seeing them play. I'm very, very excited to see them play. What? Ba-ba-da-ba-da. What else? I've seen similar suggestions before, but I don't have a great idea on what made a good one versus a bad one, and was always a home rule. I love there are so many examples in the book. I agree in regards to the relationship questions. Totally. I've only had one relationship built into the start of the campaign. It was just that me and another character were friends already, and that simple thing was so helpful for early RP. Oh my god. Having inbuilt relationships early is huge. I've always required, well, not always, but ever since it was like exposed to me, I've always required that there's some manner of like at least kind of a pre-existing relationship before the first session. But the questions I loved the like, what did you lie to me about question. I loved the like competitive question between Marisha and Sam. I loved the questions. They were super cool. Sam the Coward is going to be fun. Oh, yeah. You haven't bought 1.0 of Daggerheart yet, but what Session 0 stuff are you stealing for other games? Good question. Definitely, I mean, we'll see. I like the idea of making my players come up with communities in Session 0. Even if it's not an actual mechanic. I just really liked this part. I liked it a lot. And then like coming up with what their home is kind of like. I thought that was awesome. And it's so funny because I ended up doing something kind of like this later in my current Saltmarsh campaign. Like later in the campaign, individually as we were playing, shit just came up where it would be useful for me to know where they are from. And I have progressively asked each character where they're from and like gotten some information about it. And I've worked that into the story and the plot. And it's incredibly useful for placing them in the world and like understanding their perspective and the perspective of the world on them. So incredibly useful thing that I have found, and I did it later, and it would have been even more useful if I had done it sooner. Like, in retrospect, the only thing I regret about doing it is not doing it in the first session. So communities, even if there's no mechanics, I think I'm going to start working this into my session 0. Not required. If your players are super not into it, then skip it. But I really, really liked it. I think that having them determine the starting settlement was super interesting. I liked it a lot. The determining the location, again, I'll have to see how this goes for a miniseries. But everything that they did with the starting settlement, I love for a campaign that is not super related to the location that it is in the world, if that makes sense. Or I can give them a subsection of the world, right? Like, they have the former Halcyon domain here in the Age of Umbra. So it's like, if I'm doing my next campaign, I could give them one country. I could say, okay, this is the country that you guys are starting in. These are some of the factors. Now you guys help each other and me build the starting settlement. Because again, especially for a long-term campaign, I think that would have very little downside. Because even if the plot was super specific to that country, as long as they're in the country, I very rarely build plots and stories that are very single city dependent. Now, that does contrast with I have relatively recently in DMing, become more and more of a fan of the hub city, of the home city that they always come back to. I've been a really big fan of that. So I'd have to sort of balance these two. I really liked them developing their starting settlement, but I also really liked the hub city. And clearly, we see in campaign 1, Matt clearly has a hub city without it being the starting settlement. Those two are definitely not mutually exclusive. I'll just have to think a little bit about the pace of how I run those things into each other. But I really did like it. I just see a challenge in terms of making that super satisfying for a limited series plot that has to be pretty tight and pretty focused. But like I've said, I'm not the best at limited series. So I see a problem that I don't know that I could solve, but I'm very confident that if there is a solution, Matt will find it before I will. So I'm waiting on the edge of my seat to see what it is and see what I think about it, and what details really stand out to me about that. The relationship building questions, we've already talked about how much I loved that. Each player making a unique location, I loved. Again, even for D&D, and for this, the each player making a unique location during session 0. One shot, fucking limited series, campaign, whatever system you have. There is or I shouldn't say this. I don't think there should be a setting that is so detailed in session 0 that this is impossible. I don't think that you should be that set in stone in session 0 as a DM. So with that in mind, I can't imagine a setting, a system where this doesn't work. I loved this. Even I'm thinking about Blades in the Dark with Duskwall. Duskwall has a ton of unique locations. It has a ton of headquarters. It has a lot built. It also has a fuckload of empty space where it's buildings are implied, but there's nothing specific there. That players would easily be able to make unique locations in. So for someone that loves setting and environment, and one of the things I'm most excited about Daggerheart is the environmental actions. For someone like me, this was so cool. And I did really like feel like, especially seeing it and seeing the character or seeing all the players do it, I did get the sense that it would increase investment. I feel like that's something that you can say, but until you see it or experience it, it's, it's kind of more speculation. But I saw like Taliesin like really kind of mulling it over. And, Sam made more of a joke out of his. It all felt like... And then they started referencing each other's later. And it was like they were already remembering each other. Later on, Sam made a joke about how it was the lie. It was the lie that he told Marisha's character. He said the lie is that he had a girlfriend. And in response to that, Marisha is like, oh, is she the one that you lost at the pits, which is the location that he made before that. And he goes, oh, no, totally, the girlfriend's totally made up, whatever. But like instantly you have the players actively engaging with each other's characters and with like different aspects of each other's characters. Like that amount of not ping pong. I'm trying to think of exactly how to say it. That amount of being able, just having the capability to already react with that amount of depth to something that a player says about their character, to be able to respond with a fact that you know and imply something, like something hidden, something unspoken about the character. I mean, I feel like you don't get that normally until like session 2 or 3. I feel like that normally takes so long to develop. And so I was very, that was very cool to me. That was very cool. And maybe it was an exception. We talk all the time about how the players in Critical Role, they're just really good. They're really, really good. So it's possible that it is a them specific thing, that it looked and felt so good. And to a certain extent, it probably is. Like, they probably made it look better and more, effortless. Well, maybe except for Sam. They all made it look more effortless than it might actually be. But I was super into it. I was very, very into it. So I think that's a lot of what I took away from this, is ways that I can introduce, not only can I introduce setting lore in session 0, but ways that I can tie the characters into setting lore. And the thing that I'm most interested to see from Matt, who out of anyone in the world is going to be one of the foremost experts on how to do Daggerheart, out of anyone in the world, I'm so interested to see how that plays out long term, the balancing act of it, of allowing all of this flexible world building, all of this collaboration. Like, how does it work out in the wash, especially from someone who, if my chat is to be believed, famously planned out. And if even, I've heard comments from Brendan Lee Mulligan in a similar vein of like, oh, I'm very improv heavy, Matt's very prep heavy. For someone like that, how does this extreme collaboration in terms of crafting the world, how does that go in practice? I'm so interested to see, because a lot of this stuff I really loved. Yeah. I always love going back to session 0s after the campaign is over. That's fair. Will you be chatting in the Umbra spoilers chat during the live? Maybe. It's already gonna be hard enough for me to take notes mid-live. Not being able to pause. I don't know if I'll also be able to live tweet. You know what I'm saying? So maybe we'll have to see. I'm legitimately uncertain if I will be able to do that. I have also considered making it a little bit more of a show. There's like a what do you call it? There's like a Discord stage where you can like stream a video. I could do it in the Discord, which is more private, and then we could have kind of like a watch party, but it's not public, so there's not as much of a potential legal issue there, or ethical issue, but there is still that ethical issue. So I even if it is reduced, it's still there. So I don't know. I think it could be cool to do some stuff in the Discord with it, but I doubt the feasibility of it. I'd kind of like to, but I don't know if my particular brain is suited for that. Yeah. I've tried to do community likes in other systems. It always kind of feels like a chore without a mechanical benefit. I could see that. Yeah. One thing that's really sad, the one-shots are not in the full book like at all. Really? Like Sablewood Messengers isn't in at all? That is crazy. That is surprising to me. But yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I'd love for you to react, pause, and comment to the How to DM Daggerheart video that CR put out last week. I would also be interested in watching that. I will make no promises as to when, but it's on the list. It's on the list because I also think it would be incredibly interesting, especially as we go into Age of Umbra, being able to look at kind of the idealized, GMing techniques and like the version of GMing that Matt has in his head, compared to like maybe what actually happens, or to see if some things diverge. Not to call Matt a hypocrite by any means, but see if there is any divergence between the theory and the reality, and if that can be attributed to the players, if it can be attributed to the plot, the miniseries, the actual play of it all. That would be very, very interesting to me. Yeah. I will say my table also did the same thing. They got really invested in each other's world building. Oh, that's so cool. That's very cool. Yeah. Preempted you again. True. Paid GMing. Oh yeah, that's fair. I'd offer my beacon for the screen share if we wanted to just all watch together. I'm gonna hesitate away from that, especially because that's like paywalled content. I feel relatively confident in the current format of like, we're all watching it live, we're watching the Monday VODs. I feel relatively confident in that. I picked Wednesday to give people the most time to watch the free VOD. If they want to get Beacon, obviously they can and should. But so I don't want to do too much displaying other stuff or giving like access to things in the Discord. I think it'd be super fun if you guys want to like talk in the Discord during, if you guys want to live tweet it, whatever discussion anyone wants to do, I'm incredibly down for. But when it comes to actually displaying their content, I get, that gets a little bit more hesitant for me personally. Sablewood Messengers is now the free quick start and is separate. Oh, I see. What are we talking about? We're talking about Age of Umbra. The live stream descriptions, like, the topic of the stream is almost always in the description. But yeah, we're talking about Critical Role's Age of Umbra, their new show. We will have a live thread, I assume. We've done it before. Yeah. We'll have a live thread. Yeah. I don't want to fuck shit up too if that ain't welcome. It's chill. I mean, it's up to you, Fat Yoshi. It's mostly like, you know, you'll have to follow the rules. I'll have to vibe check you, and it's just that most of the stuff I do is very themed and on topic, and most of the time you seem to not really know much about the theme. So it's hard. I don't know if you would like being in the Discord because it is mostly things that are on topic. Now there is more general TTRPG discussion, but you know that's up to you. We often have a live thread and spoilers for the main campaign. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think we'll definitely have that sort of live chat discussion. I don't know how much I'll be in there, but I will love to be able to read it afterward. It will be the first one I can see. I'm psyched. The only thing you'll miss not having a Beacon membership is the cooldown videos. Something they started doing late C3. That would be cool. And you know, I won't, you know, never say never. I don't know. You know, it's definitely possible that I may get a Beacon membership. But it's not currently in the plan and in the cards. But yeah, that could be what Umbra Spoilers is for. You only go into the spoilers if you're caught up. I will almost certainly be watching it entirely live every Thursday that I am able to. So I think I will be pretty on the cutting edge of things, just to give myself even more time to digest. Because I will... You guys see how long it takes me to watch a single episode. I will... Dedicating that time outside of stream is already tough. So I will almost have to watch it live and get a general vibe and impression, and then I will probably go back and rewatch specific things on the VOD. Also, Taliesin looks like my favorite drama teacher, and I don't mean that in specific. I did not have a drama teacher that ever looked like Taliesin, but that's just the vibe that he's given off. Let's see. Also, the lore of the setting does look interesting. It looks like something I specifically would be very, very into. Now, again, we'll have to see. We'll have to see if it, fully works out that way. But I'm into it. I like the Veiled Gods. I like the Shadow of Society. I like a lot of shit about it. I really enjoy. There was something really small and really specific. I really enjoy that pretty much all magic casters are just called Aether Weavers. I believe with the exception of like the more divine oriented. So there's like divine and then magic broadly. And I liked those distinctions, and I liked those being like the distinctions that are visible to people. I thought that was really interesting. Them being treated differently, I thought was cool. Like one being more related to people's opinions of the Veiled Gods, and one being related to people's opinions of, the Halcyon domain and the pre-Cataclysm society. I liked that distinction. Because I'm not generally a fan of when there is how do I phrase it? I'm not a fan of when people can instantly tell what class you are. You know what I'm saying? I don't love it when it's like, oh, you're a bard, you're a wizard, you're a sorcerer, you're a warlock. I really, because it's never felt quite right to me, especially given that a lot of the classes share spells. So I often make it a relatively vague concept in my game of like distinguishing between different magical sources. And I like that this setting, this frame, has combined them in such a way to where what the distinctions are, like there is only one distinction, even though there are more magical domains, like domains that do magical shit. There still is a distinction, but there's only one. And that one distinction further helps build out kind of the lore, you know? So I really liked that. But probably shouldn't get beacon. Thumbnails are pretty spoilery. Yeah, well, yeah, man. I don't know. I like I said, I don't plan on it currently. But how I like how many classes are gish if you want to gish. I think the domain cards in general are very slick, very cool. They offer you a lot of options in a sort of Pathfinder-esque way. They offer you a lot of customization options while being very strictly themed. And I like that the classes have their own distinct and bespoke abilities, but then give you access to pools, almost like, spell lists. And that there's a lot of flexibility within that. I have to see it in practice. I'm a fan so far of Daggerheart's class system. I don't feel, super comfortable being like, I love it, because I just haven't given, or I haven't had enough time spent in it to really know if I actually, really love it. But so far, just from the outside, from what it looks like, a lot of parts about it attract me. So yeah, I feel like Seraphs are even rarer than Aether Weavers, right? I got the vibe that magic casters in general are rare, but people that would self-designate as Aether Weavers are possibly a skosh more common. But I'm not entirely sure. Seraphs are the only divine casters. I think that the divine casters are the people with Splendor, which I think there would be two classes that have Splendor. I actually think they address it at a certain point. The great clerics of old. Expectation on those who display such gifts. However, while some see hope, others see those with abilities as an opportunity to express their hate for the absent gods, seraphs, and wizards, since both of you guys have access to this, who display their Splendor domain abilities or gifts, might make a profound impact or draw unwanted attention. So it appears to be seraphs and wizards, because they're the two with Splendor. So it seems like Splendor domain is the divine casting, not necessarily the class specifically. And then Aether Weavers are bards, druids, rogues, rangers, sorcerers, wizards. So it actually seems like possibly divine casters are a subset of Aether Weavers. If I am, to believe these quotes that I directly copy and pasted. It seems like all casters are Aether Weavers, but divine casters, specifically from the Splendor domain, have maybe a bit of increased stuff around them. So that's my current impression. Pathfinder is the Robo guy from Apex Legends, I think. He is. That is also Pathfinder. No, there's a TTRPG called Pathfinder that is a competitor to D&D, or at least Pathfinder 2e is it competes with D&D 5e. Neither explicitly divine. Yeah. It's so interesting that wizard can have splendor instead of wizard being codex and arcana. Yeah. It's interesting. It's definitely interesting. Fucks the splendor. This is what I'm saying, Fat Yoshi. I don't know if you would even enjoy the Discord because you just don't know what's going on. If you want to, sit, play along and watch, I'm perfectly fine with it. But that would not be my thing personally. But if that's what gets you going, man, go for it. It seems to me there are several anyways. Paige came in and said something. Let's see. I do like that Taliesin said he was going to be a vibe. I think those are the main things that I think I really wanted to talk about. I don't know if anyone else had anything that they wanted to discuss, anything that they feel that I missed. I don't think we had anything super crazy in the Discord related to it. I don't think so. Let me continue reading through the notes. I took all the notes for a reason. Oh yeah, a lot of really specific ancestry lore. And like not even just ancestry lore from the perspective of like how do these things fit into society? Like I think that's a really common way that we construct or think about ancestry, species, race, whatever you want to call it. Lore. I think that's a common way we think about like that sort of lore in D&D settings is to think about relationships between different species, different races. And that's fine. Like, it's like, oh, the lizard folk are, they are sentient in this setting, but they're more kind of like wild men off in the swamps, or they're very normal members of society. There's I feel like those are often, especially with the monstrous races, there's often that sort of distinction in your setting. It was very interesting to me that the ancestries have like whole on different like morphologies. Like the fairies are like making like the soul blight is making the fairies like develop into these monstrous like Cronenbergs, and the fucking what was it? Oh yeah, the ribbits. The ribbits are like 6 to 8 feet tall. They skulk on all fours. yeah. What? Ribbit dagger heart. These dudes, 6 to 8 feet tall, skulking on all fours. Like that's substantial. The Dracona being, very, very like more reptilian. All of it is very, it was very, very frame specific. And I thought that was very cool. I'm trying to think of a more like in-depth take on it. I think my more in-depth take is that there seems to be a lot of care put into making the frame and the setting and like the environment very unique. It feels like there's a lot of care into being like, yes, this resembles other things, but this is Age of Umbra. This is the setting. It might resemble other stuff, but it is itself. It is what it is. And I am very curious to see how that feels in practice. Because again, I sort of said it earlier. It's like, it's really easy to talk about the ribbits being 6 to 8 feet tall, fucking skulking around on all fours. But if that is not represented, if that is not addressed within the actual course of play, is it even really there? You know, it's kind of like we talk about character flaws. It's like character flaws have to be interacted with in order for them to really exist within the fiction. So it's like Age of Umbra sounds so cool. I'm going to be looking out for if it actually is. Because if they just interact with a ribbit normal, if it never comes up that they're fucking giant shambling toads, I'm going to be a little disappointed. It's going to feel a little bit more like flavor over function. It's going to feel like, empty calories, possibly. So I'm cautiously optimistic, I would say. But I'm cautiously optimistic that it will all be represented. But if it's not, I'm going to be very disappointed. Some 5e players get upset if certain lore deviates from established lore. DH goes off the gate saying there is no single lore. Yeah, I think if you want, I think I often bemoan, right? I often bemoan and kind of make fun of the idea that the default setting for D&D 5e is the multiverse, right? I often kind of make fun of the idea that a rule book with listed gold prices and weights can possibly be setting agnostic. But bro, if you actually wanted to make your system setting agnostic, this is how you do it. You introduce all of these little mini settings. You take pains to make sure that there is not a ton of implied lore, implied economics, implied environmental effects within the core baseline mechanics. And then you introduce these mini settings really hard, really fast, and make sure that people understand that these settings change a lot of the core aesthetics, maybe even the core abilities that are within the rulebook. That is how D&D used to be, frankly. I talked to Mr. Welch for the Dragon Week video, and we talked about, he has a whole video about the older settings. Well, not the older settings, the existing settings of D&D. And like they used to have totally unique setting mechanics. Like Birthright would give you setting-specific mechanics for kingdom management. Dark Sun had psionics. No other setting had psionics. Like, this used to be how D&D was. And I am nervous, but again, cautiously optimistic that Daggerheart will appear to be doing setting agnostic correctly, and it will end up doing it like 5e. It will end up doing it where it's like, okay, yeah, there's no core setting, wink, wink. There are other settings, but we all know that it's the Forgotten Realms. That's what I'm really, really hoping we don't see. I don't want them to say all of these cool things about Age of Umbra and then for us to not actually see that in the course of play. And for it to sort of default to some baseline Daggerheart lore, baseline Daggerheart aesthetic. I think Age of Umbra is really cool. I want to see that. And I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that they will and can do that. But I've been burned before. I think this is a strong start if they are going to do that. So, yeah. And I think that is part of the way that you avoid people being upset by lore deviations, because being upset by lore deviations in 5e when the default setting is the multiverse is ludicrous. Like, that is going against the core messaging of the thing that you are talking about. And so if you are upset by someone following the core messaging, it is very clearly establishing that the core messaging is not working and is not respected by the majority of by those people, by that portion of the player base. And that sucks. Not to make this a dump on D&D thing, but that's the thing I really don't want to see. That's what I don't want to see. Yeah. They're usually on all fours, so not bipedal unless they have to be. Yeah, that's the thing that makes me the most kind of weirded out by them. Yeah. Hopping Steel Ribbits versus Lakers. Yeah. Any updated guesses on the Liam lore PCs based on session 0 guesses on how they will be introduced? I have no guesses on how they'll be introduced. Or at least, No, I don't really have even any inferences for how they might be introduced. Let's see. What were my predictions? For Laura, I said Goblin Bard. That still feels on the table. And I said Druid Frog Hermit for Liam. Frankly, both of those still seem on the table. We got no bards. Oh, no, we do have a bard. Fuck! I forgot that Ashley screwed me. That she almost went rogue. And then didn't. Damn it. Okay, so maybe no bard. Well, I don't think that Liam's gonna go a rogue. But that would be okay. Laura could go a rogue. A goblin rogue. That could still be fun. Will Liam want to play a ribbit? A druid ribbit? Ooh! It could be kind of fun. So, right, like, they talk about, they all had, like, connections and, like, common places and ancestries that they were from. Could be very cool if Liam was from the haunted forest that Taliesin created during session 0. And if he's from the haunted forest, that would fit in with the druid frog hermit. And them being two gross Cronenberg monsters would fit in for, a connection. Maybe they met along the way, got to chatting. Maybe they met along the way to Desperlock. That could be kind of fun. I'm going to keep it with Liam, Druid Frog Hermit, Druid Ribbit, Hermit. I don't know why they're together. Possibly Talison's character like hired Liam for the journey from Taliesin and Ashley's home settlement to get them and escort them to Desperlock. I think possibly Liam has like some methods for surviving the Umbra without a sacred flame, without a sacred pyre. But they're very unpleasant. I would guess. I think that they would give a lot of fear. And that could be... Oh, wait, does Druid have a way of mitigating fear? I don't have the rules. But either way, I mean, maybe it's just that his wild shape. Maybe if he wild shapes, he's not as affected or just isn't affected at all by the Umbra. Possible. So I'm going to stick with Liam. I'm going to stick with my Liam guess. Now, Laura, not a bard. They're not going to double up. What do they got left? Demiplane. Yeah. Brother, I asked a D&D related question. I mean, bro, you did, but this is a book club. Sort of situation. This is an episode discussion. This stream is about discussing a thing that we have all seen, and you don't even know the baseline of what it is. So, feel free to hang out, but I'm going to probably ignore questions that where I have to explain the thing that everyone should have kind of come in knowing. I'm sorry. I feel you, but it's you know, it's a little too themed. You got to know too much, unfortunately. Let's see. Ashley is a bard. Common speculation, they playtest the 2 new playtest classes, Warlock and Fighter. You know, I understand that speculation. I do. But for the same reason that, you know, I was thinking about, okay, you know, I was really focusing on the homebrew, or not the homebrew, but the frame-specific rules. I think they're going to want to show the product that people can play, and like the one that they have like worked on and they're confident on. And I think that having homebrew mechanics, or not homebrew, but frame-specific mechanics, is a core part of that, and that's why they're going to be there. And for that reason, I don't think that they will do any playtest stuff. I think they will only do full release stuff because they want to show off, like, this is Daggerheart, this is the 1.0 version, this is what you can play. That's obviously speculation. I got no clue. Also interesting that there's a fighter when we already have the Guardian and the Warrior? What the fuck is the fighter going to be? Is the fighter not just a warrior? You know? I don't know about that. What if they aren't together? I think they will almost certainly be together, given that we got them making the starting settlement. Because again, the starting settlement was not their home settlements. Like the how would I phrase it? Like, it happens to be the home settlement for Sam and Marisha's characters, but I think the starting settlement of Desperlock is where they are all starting and where they all, like, came to know each other. So I think they will all be there. I could be wrong. You know, we're in a whole new world where I say stuff and people don't know, and I don't know if, you know, people can throw out their own theories about what will happen. I don't know. The playtest classes make sense from a business POV, but I don't feel like the players would like those. See, I actually feel the opposite. I actually feel like they would not make sense from a POV, from a business POV, specifically because they will not be like the product that is being sold. They are like a future update to that product, and they probably won't be balanced with, you know, at least the same level of rigor as the other ones. I feel like they will want to show a cohesive product, not necessarily what they're working on. But that, you know, that's pure speculation. They start off as enemies to the main fight party? Oh, I could see that. They might. That is true. I could see them not necessarily being in a party together, especially because Matt mentioned, like, you're aware of each other during the session 0. He said, like, you're aware of each other. You know, you guys are all notable individuals within the community, but you're not necessarily together. I don't know if that will change by session 1, you know, if that was just like session 0 type stuff. But I could see that. Not something I recommend at most table, but okay for CR. Yeah, I mean, PvP is inherently quite risky. Yeah. Wilder speculation? Let's do it. One of them kills a starting party member. Lol. I think fighter is fisticuffs. It's more monk. Oh. Interesting. Guardian is a weapon master, and now they're bringing fighters as unarmed martial. Interesting. Okay. Brawler and martial artist, but the core class mechanics lean very monk-like. I think about them like muscle monk and dex monk. Yeah, I can see that. Okay. I can see that. Okay, but let's see. So what don't we have? There's only 9 classes. There's only 9 classes, and they've already picked 5. So I've got like pretty much a 50-50 chance of getting one of them. Let's see. Wizard, Bard, Guardian, Ranger, Seraph. So no Wizard, no Bard, no Ranger, no Seraph, and no Guardian. All right, so we've got Druid, Rogue, Warrior, Sorcerer. Okay. Now, for them, I'm going to stick with Liam on Druid. Now for Laura. You know, if Laura... Would Laura be more into... I feel like Laura would be into the shadowy... What's the rogue... One of the rogue's domains I'm thinking of. Midnight. I think Laura would be into Midnight, which both Sorcerer and Rogue have, more than the Warrior domains. So I'm narrowing down to these two. Now, Goblin Rogue feels natural. What's the spell casting kind of situation? Wizard, Bard, Guardian, Ranger, Seraph. Well, it's like a lot of classes are half casters. Don't get me wrong. But it's Sorcerer is like very. You know what? I don't think she'll do Sorcerer, especially after hearing Travis's, her loving husband, after hearing Travis's character concept of him having the innate power, and that being, kind of his whole Seraph deal. I don't think she would go Sorcerer with also inherent power. Unless she was like a mentor type figure to Travis's character. But I also don't feel like they would really go for that sort of vibe, So I'm thinking Rogue. I'm feeling Goblin Rogue is what I'm feeling. Yeah. Yeah. Rogue is the only one I played, and it was ridiculously fun. I can imagine. I believe it. I absolutely believe it. What are you doing on the fandom wiki? I pulled it up to get these things because I did not write these things down. I should have in retrospect, but I'm so used to people having it for me in chat that I was like, oh shit, now I'm like kind of the guy that should probably like have that as the streamer. I should be presenting that to people. But I didn't. So I came here to grab them. I guess I could grab the table a little bit. But I literally just looked up Age of Umbra. Age of Umbra characters is the exact Google search that I put in. There we go. All right, we can delete that. Spoilers? Well, I'm not going anywhere on the Critical Role wiki, to be clear. I'm not going anywhere. I just pulled up for the characters. There's a non-fandom wiki that is so much better. I just clicked the first link. I'm not looking through the wiki, to be very clear. I needed that table, and that was pretty much it. You could look up your C3 predictions and assume they want to switch things up. I could. I'm going to leave them where they're at for now, so we'll see. But yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. And I want to keep this, pretty much all. I have a good ad blocker for dealing with fandom. Do I even have an ad block? Oh, I do, I guess. I didn't even remember if I had an ad block, to be honest. But yeah, I think that's pretty much what I wanted to discuss. And like I said, I want to keep these episode discussions nice and digestible. Anything else? I mean, I found a lot of the individual lore interesting, but again, I want to wait. I want to wait to see. Opening random still is something I can feel. Yeah. Because you opening either homepages of the wiki would be insane. Oh, I'm sure. That's why I try to just like find the first thing that seems reasonable or seems helpful, and then go from there. But yeah, I think that's it. It'll be hard to know, or it's hard to know if my not takeaway, but if the next episode discussion will be longer or shorter. I'm honestly not sure. But I like the 2-hour time frame. I think that's nice. So if you are interested in Age of Umbra, in having these discussions, have episode 1. I almost did 2. Have episode 1 nice, or not nice. I'm losing my mind here. If you are interested in joining us for the next discussion, watch Age of Umbra episode 1. It airs live tomorrow, and it will be out on VOD publicly on Monday. It's out sooner on their Beacon, on Beacon. And so you have plenty of time to watch it before we do the next Analyzing Umbra. That's pretty much it. If you have things you want to discuss, come prepared. Come prepared. Know what you're gonna ask. Or if you want to make sure that I think about and answer your question, join the Discord. Throw it in the spoilers chat. Say like, hey, I'd love to discuss this on the next book club, and we'll take a look at it. Especially if you can't be here. And is there anything you think I missed? Doing the YouTuber thing. If there's anything you thought I missed that really stood out to you of the episode, let me know down in the comments. Maybe I'll not check it out. Maybe I'll answer next time. God, I hate signing off of shit. Are you excited for the next episode? Yes, sir. Although I will say, anyone that also watches Critical Eyes, I may or may not. It may or may not be on Friday. If we were following the new schedule, it would be on Friday. Part of the reason I'm a little bit spacey right now is because a lot of physical pain going on. So may or may not happen. Especially, there's also people coming over. They finished early today, so I didn't. I would have done this regardless, but they might be here for a long time on Friday, so I may or may not do Critical Eyes on Friday. Might skip a week, but I'm hoping that we do it. I'm hoping that Critical Eyes does start on Friday, but I'll let you know ahead of time. Since you're watching live, how long the AOU EPs last affect Friday schedule? No. It wouldn't affect it. Like, you mean in terms of like me staying up late? No. It wouldn't affect it. I'm a night owl. I shouldn't be. I should get to bed earlier. But I don't. So, but that's it. That's it. I think. Yeah. I am surprised I got through this so well. But I'm super excited. I'm excited for the next Age of Umbra. I'm excited for the next Critical Role. I am going to go probably take a bath or sleep. And more realistically, I'm probably going to do neither of those things because I don't take care. Because I'm not good at dealing with pain. I like to just ignore it. But that's it. Goodbye. I'll see you later. Have a good one. Bye-bye.